All right, guys. Thank you guys for coming out this morning, even in the rain. I really appreciate it. I'm your guys' host, Jonathan. Thank you guys for coming out this morning. I'm your guys' host. There we go. We had a low echo. Yeah, I'm your guys' host, Jonathan Clem. I'm the founder of Quality Builders, and I'm also managing broker of RE Investors Brokerage. Our goal here with our meetup at Chicago RE Investors is really to help you figure out and take your kind of most important next step. I know it's always challenging to figure out what that is sometimes. And so surrounding yourself with a group of people like-minded, wanting to do the same things makes a monster difference. One of the things that I always try and do is I start with gratitude. So I'm super grateful for all you guys making it here today. Without you guys here, it wouldn't be nearly as great of a group as it is. So thank you guys for coming. For those of you who are online, next time try to make it here. There's, it's definitely a big difference coming in person opposed to watching online. The connections you make are what really matter in person. And I always like to start too is, with the three things I always think that make people successful in what they're doing no matter what. And the first thing is always to educate, learn, and read, and followed by networking, followed by taking action and being decisive. And then continuing to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So, there's tons of people in this room who are here to help. So don't be afraid to walk up to anyone in the room to get help from them. Everyone's here to help and everyone's here to learn. And that's something I've always been, shy about, is walking up to people. And it's something that for me it's something you practice like riding a bike. And over time it gets easier and easier and easier. So I just, want to encourage you guys to get out of your comfort zone, talk to someone you need to, and figure out what that next step is. And we're all here to help. I know I did that actually at RJ's meetup. RJ's here. His meetup's on Monday at Chief O'Neill's at 6 o'clock probably. So make sure you guys are there. That's the Chicago multifamily meetup. It's awesome. And the reason I love that one too is, in getting out of my comfort zone, is I want to say it was 3 or 4 months ago. And that's where I actually met Brian. And so, that's a full circle of how networking works. Is you go to these events, you talk to someone, and that person ends up being the person who finds you the deals that you're looking for. So, with that said, I'll hand it over to Brian. Brian's a commercial broker with Essex Realty, a director, and I'll kind of let you give a little brief introduction for yourself.
Okay. You guys hear me better now? Okay. So I multifamily broker specializing in what we call the mid-market. So anything million to 20 million. Most of these deals are 5 units or larger, usually somewhere in the vicinity of 25 to 50 units. I grew up in South America, in Argentina. I moved to the States when I was about 17 years old, and I found out that apartment buildings, that is not just for the families, there's plenty of opportunities there. So I went to school in Iowa State, and
Iowa State too? Yeah, go
there you go.
Cyclones.
Great school. I had a tremendous amount of time, but fun there and good times. But I studied city planning there. I realized that you can't really be a city planner inside of a small town. So moved to Chicago. As soon as I moved to Chicago, I realized that I needed a job. Started renting apartments. And that was the first kind of introduction to apartment buildings that I've had. And when I was renting apartments, I was doing well. I was renting a few apartments for one of these owners, and one of the owners like, hey, there's something that you could be doing, which is actually selling. Oh, all right. So that was my, I guess, introduction to being a broker. So I met with a few larger brokerages here in Chicago, and I started working as a multifamily broker. I didn't know anything about, anything really. I just knew that there was a business there that you could grow in and you could scale up. And there was a path to that. And so that's kind of my background a little bit. And I own now a few buildings, and definitely started with a 2-flat and moved on that way. So I am pretty familiar with the path that you guys are taking at this point.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll usually start, ask a couple questions to get us going. Then we'll kind of move around the room and you guys can pick Brian's brain to help you guys out any way you can. So just curious, in the room, how many brokers are there that are agents? 4 of us. Any of you guys interested in getting into the commercial space as a broker? Jeffrey, awesome. And then like how many people are in kind of like the 2 to 4 unit single family space as far as like fixing, flipping or rentals? And then how many people are interested in making the jump eventually into the 5+ space into the commercial multifamily space? So pretty much everyone in the room. So I kind of want to start with the agent side of stuff. And if you're a newer agent, what's kind of the steps you need to take that you would need to follow to become a commercial broker, and how is it different?
So the steps are pretty similar to, I guess, most careers. And it's important to find the right brokerage and somebody who's going to be able to mentor you or help you get your experience and understanding kind of what are the needs of your clients, rather than sometimes, and a lot of times we forget that our agenda is to help somebody else with their agenda. So how to get started, or the question was, remind me of the question.
Yeah, like what steps do you need to take if you're going to be
take your broker's exam and then talk to a few commercial brokerages and see which one might fit. And I think the important part would be the training that they're able to provide you.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Like even when you're just getting a residential license, I'm always telling people, start with someone like a Keller Williams or a Coldwell Banker who have all like the training and processes set up for you to succeed. Whereas if you go with like an independent brokerage, it's going to be a lot harder for you if you don't have that network and kind of background that these bigger brokerages have to help guide you to be a successful real estate agent. And then, so I feel like the process is, I don't want to say much different, but from being a residential to a commercial broker, it seems like, you can't find off market multifamily deals the way you can find, single family and 2 to 4 unit deals. So like, what's the process? Like, you don't have to give us all your secrets as a commercial broker, but like, what does it look like and how do you find these deals and get in contact with these owners to, get these deals set up?
Honestly, a lot of it is networking events that happens. But it starts very similar to, I think, residential. I haven't had too much residential experience, but it's all about the network. It's all about communication and connection and building the trust between the person that is giving you the assignment and how to develop that confidence that you're going to do a good job for them, that you're going to go to work for them. And so we don't work at all off of the MLS. So we're outside of the MLS. So we're dealing directly with investor to investor. So makes it a little bit easier sometimes to navigate as a seller, because there is that the person's coming through can close because we've vetted them. That the person's coming through knows what they're doing because we've vetted them. But finding the owners and or the sellers and the clients, a lot of it is cold calling, a lot of it is letters. So I don't believe it's that much different than just a regular any other job, really. It's just how you're going about it once you do make that connection and what you're bringing to the table.
And then you guys are using your CoStar or what type of software?
So CoStar, we use CoStar. We use another system called Reonomy. We use another system called Prospect Now. We use a lot of system. trying to think. Cityscapes is a new system that that is, I think, just particularly to Chicago. And so a lot of it is finding the person that owns. Everything is public information. So you find the person that owns it and you reach out to them. Be like, hey, I'm here to help. Might not be today, tomorrow, but maybe in 2 years, if you want to sell out here, or maybe you're looking for something, you need some information. A lot of times people that own buildings are focused on managing and running the buildings, and they don't know what's going on in the neighborhood. So sometimes just information about the neighborhood is useful. Hey, listen, this deal closed two doors down, closed for $1 million, and he's like, oh, I bought mine for 250 in such and such year. Yeah, well, maybe there's some equity there. Hey, let me introduce you to like a lender that might be able to pull up. So you help that way and build some trust.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Connections and communication, super key. Another thing I've heard of people doing is like just hitting the streets, right? Looking at the buildings that you're trying to get in touch with, telling them what's going on, seeing if there's, dilapidations to the outside of their building, things they need to fix, items they need to address, just making them aware that you're aware of what's going on with their building and you have their best interests for them. Next question I had was as far as newer investors goes, right? So everyone in the room in the single family, 2 to 4 unit space, like I personally know, because I've finally made that jump and it's difficult, but like, how do you get the attention of these commercial brokers who are swamped by people to bring you the deal? Because it's hard to be that person to get the deal coming to you.
Right. Honestly, it's the same way. Build a relationship and with the brokers. Don't pretend that you are an expert when you're not. Be like, hey, I'm getting my feet wet. I'm just getting started. If you have an interesting listing, do you mind if I come see it? How we normally do our showings is we'll choose 1 or 2 days in which we do showings, where we access tenants' units and we bother the people that live there, but we try to do it 1 or 2 days in the week. And so you can call the broker, be like, hey, when is the next time you guys are going to be doing this? I'll be there. And so whether you're ready to buy that time or not, I think it's important to go through the motions and educate yourself on, first of all, how this particular broker, how they do the business, how they present the project and what. And so I think research just as much as anything else. When you're researching apartments, and you have to understand the product you're looking at, and if you understand the product, and you can speak about it with brokers and understand what kind of buyer they're looking for their seller.
Yeah, I love that. Other things I've tried too is just like following up, just like any other sale. Stay on the radar. Text Brian every other week.
Oh, for sure.
Take him out to lunch. Take him out to coffee. Whatever you can do to just really establish the relationship so that they know you're a good person at the end of the day.
We will send out email blasts to people and reach back out to the email. Be like, hey, what did this one sell for, or who was the buyer, or what was the profile of the buyer? So you got to understand a little bit what's going on.
Yeah, the other thing too I like to do is I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, and I feel like the commercial brokers are a little bit more into like the LinkedIn space than Facebook. So I'm always liking, commenting, making sure people see my name and trying to get people's attention that way as well. As far as the differences between commercial and residential, there's differences on the financing side. Could you just kind of like walk us through like what the banks are kind of looking at kind of at a high level perspective?
So differently than residential, whereas residential, you have to get approved personally that you're going to be able to support the loan. On commercial, most of the time, as long as the building itself is able to sustain itself, you're more of an operator or more of an asset manager, if you will, for that property. So, the debt to income ratio, is different than the debt covered ratio. So it's looked at by lenders similarly, but instead of you personally, it's the building itself, right? Tougher markets would have higher vacancy rates, and tougher markets would have higher unit turns. I think I was chatting with some of the guys there, in a neighborhood like Bucktown and Wicker Park, for instance, maybe a tenant that moves out is gonna, the damage they'll do is maybe $1,000, maybe paints, maybe fix up some things. And in a tenant that is a little tougher market, maybe they do a little bit more destruction to the unit. The door hinges are off, or there's some other. So your budgeting should be addressed differently. And the same way the lenders look at those things. You do need, most of the time, 25% down payment or 30%, depending on the markets. But I think the key difference is that it's just the building has to sustain itself versus you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know too. Yeah, instead of looking at DTI, they're looking at more like a global cash flow of
Right.
who's on it, who are the guarantors, what's their experience. So yeah, I always am looking to partner with people on bigger deals. I think that's the easiest way to get in the space is find someone who's doing it and add value to them. And with the way things are going right now, with the market, interest rates are rising. Everyone's kind of a little bit on edge, like what's happening in the next 6 to 12 months in the multifamily space. And what do you think? Where's everything going?
Well, with tomorrow's newspaper, everybody's a genius, right? But the reality is interest rates have gone up, and they have gone up drastically in a very short time, which has shocked the market. But it's not that much different than 2018 or 2019. I think the rates are about the same. I think that if the deal makes sense, if the numbers make sense to you, then move forward with it. I think that a lot of times there's so much information getting thrown at us all the time. Don't do this, don't do that, be careful with this, be careful with that. It's like, I think that if you stay in your kind of lane, on your path, and you push through that, then that makes your life easier. I guess find your little box that you're comfortable with and move that way. There is some very clear things that are happening, outside of interest rates. And the interest rates are just a reflection of the market, right? So inflation is going up, everybody's freaking out. And the way to stop that inflation is by increasing the interest rates, right? That's one way that they're able to manage it. But we have a lot of other issues. I mean, we can't just ignore coronavirus and the effect that had. And it was evident that there was going to be a repercussion. I think we're just starting to feel that now. When you have a whole businesses shutting down and everybody's slowing down, people weren't buying things, all of a sudden they basically opened the doors, floodgates, everybody's out trying to buy things. So there was pent-up demand for a lot of purchases. People that didn't move in 2 years went out and bought houses. Particularly interest rates were low, and that was something that was done, I don't know if inorganically, but that was it. So there's also the other aspect, is construction side of things. Everything's gone up 30%, right? A boiler that used to cost $40,000 to fix or replace, now it costs $65,000. So you're looking at a huge increase in a lot of things. Now so that means that construction slows down because there's not a lot of new construction. So we were chatting with a developer that bought 15 lots, and they were going to develop these 3 flats in Woodlawn. They were geared up to do it, and now their pricing went up from $200,000 per square foot, give or take, to $300 a square foot. So that's a big change, and then that gets dumped back into the consumer, at the end user. So I think the apartment business and the apartment buildings, the rental market, also had that too. people didn't move. So, and the tenants that were, I mean, if anybody have apartments, you weren't pushing the rents. You weren't trying to get anybody to move in during 2021. And now there's a huge demand. And you see, I mean, list the property on the market, you'll get 40 requests for apartment showings. You'll get 7 applications. That means you can increase your rents. I think across the board, there's an average of 15 to 17% increase in rents, which is significant. That's a huge number. So trying to tie all that together. So I'll bring it back. You have interest rates are up. You have construction costs are up. That means that they're not going to be building more buildings. So the apartment business and the apartment buildings, people need to still live somewhere. So I think the values of apartments and apartment buildings are going to either stay where they're at or even maybe increase just because of the demand of housing. And yeah, interest rates are up, but I don't think it's a crippling number by any means at this point.
Sweet. Yeah. Good detailed answer.
I'll go forever with this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I always say like people have to have a place to live, you know? And so I know for us, our buy box is going to be super tight. I'm super excited. We're going to always keep buying, keep our buy box tight and just be very data driven. You know, I think the numbers tell you everything. I think we need to be prepared for taxes going up and writing all those into our pro formas and models. And if we do that, I think we'll be in a good space to keep buying. So I don't think anyone should be afraid. I think they just need to be, you know, as analytical as they can be and use the data that's out there. How about questions from everyone else? Raphael.
So at what point do you transition? I know you started off with smaller, residential side. At what point did you make the transition from residential to commercial?
So as far as his personal background?
Yes.
Yeah, so the question was just, when did you transition personally from residential to commercial?
I think it was maybe 2018 or 19, but there was I realized earlier on that, you know, I bought a 2-flat and I lived in one. And then when I moved out, I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then I moved out, I refinanced, I went and bought another one. And then I was like, if I have 3 units now, I'm living there for free. The mortgage is getting paid by one, and then I have income. I was like, all right, wait a minute. But what if I do this, but it's a 6-flat or an 8-flat? And then I have mortgage getting paid, and then I have a little extra. But one of the key factors that I think is important is, I believe in organic growth, you know, so the crawl, walk, run, sprint, right? Because you yourself need to learn about tenants and how, I mean, tenants they're your clients. They're the people that it's a human business. And I think a lot of times we look at this, like the numbers and all this rents and I can push them. You don't, you know, some of this growth that you need to do is gotta be somewhat organic in a certain sense to avoid issues. But I think economies of scale, when I realized that was the case, that you could actually, the more units you have under one roof, easier to manage, easier to run. You just go there, they see you, tenants seeing you. You know, I think there's like this line that the owner's footsteps are the best fertilizer, right? So if you're there, they see you, they have my number, they can reach out to me at any point. You know, when something happens, I try to be there just as much as the janitor or the person that is like going to be fixing the little things. I just show up for 5 minutes, say hi, just make sure they see me that I'm there, make sure that they see that this is. So once I found that success with the tenants and I created a little bit of relation, I was like, oh, maybe I can do this in a larger scale. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to find money and investors to help you do this once you have a little bit of a track record.
Credibility. Oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say credibility is super key. And I know for me, I'm a huge Bigger Pockets fan, a huge Brandon Turner fan, to be honest, really. And he always talks about that stack method, right? So you start with a single family, then you go 2 unit, then you go to 8 unit. And that was my exact progression as well. Did single family, then bought a 2 unit, then did 2 unit, then did a ground up single family, which helped, and then bought the 19 unit. So I think like Brian said, like the credibility is what's key. Going through those experiences. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes is like the quickest way to getting ahead is getting started. And, the faster you get ahead, or the faster you can get ahead, the faster you get the experience, the faster you can get on the bigger deals.
No, hey. feel free
Jack
to
has
answer
a
that
question in the back.
So just in the same vein of that question, do you see a lot of your clients who are getting into commercial, getting rid of the 4 units and selling them kind of all at once, or do they sell them one at a time, once a year? What does it usually look like?
So the question.
So the question was basically after you have your smaller 2 to 4 units, you see people selling them to 1031 or get into the bigger units to get started. Yeah.
There is no typical, right? Everybody kind of does it their own way. I know several people that have 25, 30, 2 flat, 3 flats, scattered around. They love that business. That's what they like to do. They know it, understand it. They figure that smaller buildings are easier to manage because there's less chances of issues. Sometimes if you have a 10-unit building, one bad tenant might kind of make it harder for other people to live in. So you kind of lose the good tenants because you have a bad tenant. So there is no normal, but historically, I think a lot of the people that got started, and they're big owners now, like the BJB, I think is one of the bigger stories. I think he was like a teacher, or he worked for the teachers union. And if you guys know BJB, they're an entity that I always thought is interesting because he started out with the 2 flats. And I think a lot of people do that. So you start with a 2 flat or 3 flat, and you get used to it. It's the same thing we were kind of chatting before. You get used to that business, and then you're able to sell. And then if you're able to sell and make some money on it, it's like, okay, let's 1031 exchange. If you guys know, if 1031 exchange is a vehicle that protects you from capital gain taxes, which are somewhere between 17 and 22% taxes sometimes when you sell. So 1031 is something that a lot of people use it as an excuse to move on to bigger deals.
Morning, my name is Mike. Question I have, sounds like you both invested in a variety of different types of properties. You mentioned single family, residential, multifamily, and commercial. I guess my question is, when scaling throughout those different properties, what kind of problems did you run into? What kind of things?
Yeah, we don't have enough time for that.
I guess if there were a pain point that you could speak on, and then something that maybe you wish that you had a solution for earlier.
Okay. Yeah, no, of course. So yeah, the question was just basically, we both kind of worked in kind of the single family 2 to 4 unit, and then getting into the multifamily commercial space, and what kind of problems have we seen along the way. I think failure is inevitable if you're going to grow. And so I think failure is important. I think you should be looking to fail forward and fail faster usually. And it's a good thing as long as you're learning from those mistakes. I know for me, coming from a contractor background, I've had so many issues with contractors, which is why I feel like I'm in such a good space to be a good contractor. And, we've had contractors that, we've overpaid. We've had contractors that on our 2-unit building. We had someone remove a service off our building after they installed it because they hadn't got paid enough. Over and over again, issues with contractors, issues with permits for me personally. So that's why we'll never advise any of our clients not to pull any permits. And, when things go wrong without permits, they go really wrong. It's not a joke when, they say that, inspectors are going to ding you once you don't get your permits. And like, at the end of the day, I think the thing to know is like, inspectors are there not only to do their job, but like protect you as the investor. You don't want someone installing something that isn't to code in your property. Like, it's only a risk to you. And once you can actually see it from that perspective and not that, oh, I'm gonna have to pay more, that's when you can really start elevating and realize that, okay, I don't need to mess around with not pulling permits or any of that type of BS anymore. Like, I'm above that. I'm gonna make sure the deals I have, I'm gonna do them the right way. And so, yeah, those are a couple issues I found. I don't know if you have any others to add on to.
I think a lot of times you rush to put somebody in the unit because you got the pressure of the mortgage, you got the pressure of this, you got the pressure. You're like, oh, I would say take your time finding the tenant, and it's just like anything, you have to show it a lot to find the right person. Sometimes it is the first person that walks in. It's like, I love it, I'll take it. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to be able to work with this person if there's an issue. And you can tell right away. So I had the fortune of being a leasing agent, and also the misfortune, because I would, when I was a leasing agent, I just put people in units, like just push through that. And then when I started buying my own properties, I was like, oh, I'm just going to put people. And it's like, wait, that's not a good thing at all. You got to really vet these because ultimately they're the ones calling you. They're the ones that you have to work with. If, for instance, I had to replace all the windows in one of the units no, I didn't have to, but I wanted to replace all the windows. And this person, I told them, say, we're going to change the windows, and the guys will be there for 2 days, maybe at maximum. He wrote me this long email, like just with all these issues and all these concerns and about the livable space and his. Now, and I could have just responded back in an email. Instead, I called him because I have a relationship with him. I know him. I'm like, hey, listen, like, this will be fine. If you feel uncomfortable with it, we'll stop. But they'll pop the windows in. And he didn't know what the process was. He thought he was going to have like days where the windows are going to be with the no windows, and So I think that would be the biggest thing: is don't forget the tenants. That's their home, they're and choose the right one that is not gonna that you're gonna be able to deal with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good answer. I'll add one more thing too. It's like when he was talking about the money and getting that tenant in as fast as possible. You get that pressure and you feel it, and more just coming. I think like the thing I finally realized is like all of us in this room are so much better off than we really give ourselves credit for. And if we're in this room and we're taking these steps of being an investor, like it's going to be all right at the end of the day if you miss 1 month, without a tenant in there. And, that's that scarcity mindset of, there not being enough. And so once you can really shift out of that scarcity mindset into that abundance mindset, knowing that it's going to be all right, knowing that there's enough out there for everyone, knowing that, we're all here to help each other, it's just a game changer and opens up, so many more doors than you probably could ever imagine.
You're obviously talking to investors on a day-to-day basis. What are things that they can do or say that you appreciate, and maybe some things that you don't appreciate or wish they could do?
Yeah, so the question was just working with newer investors, what can they be talking to you about that makes you want to work with them, and what are some things maybe they shouldn't be saying to have them start avoiding you?
Not to say, find me a good deal. No, I'm gonna, no, but seriously, I think that it's important to make sure that they know where you're at in the process. If an investor comes to me and says like, oh, I own this building, this building, this building, this is where I'm at. I'm like, okay, this guy has experience, he knows what he's looking for. So I say like, you know, if you tell me find me a good deal, that means absolutely nothing to me, because what's a good deal to me is not the same as Jonathan, is not the same. Everybody's got different. So I think what I appreciate a lot is when somebody says like, listen, this is my pant size. This is, you know, where I fit in the business. I like this. And if you come across it, please reach out to me. And then if they reach back out to me, I'm like, hey, did you ever come across something? Then I'm like, oh, this guy is actively looking for something. He's hunting, and he knows what he's looking for. I like this analogy, so, but you know, don't try to fit on somebody else's pants. You know, make sure that you know what size you are, and be like, okay, this is what I like. I want to have, just to throw a number out there, 10% return on my money. You know, cash on cash. So whatever cash I put down for a down payment, I want 10% back. So look for markets that are like that and be like, hey, I'm here, and really know your market. So when a deal comes around, you know what's a good market. Like if you go out and look for deals that are all over the place, it's hard for you to be focused, and it's hard for you to know when a deal comes across you, you're like, oh, this is a good deal. And this is a good deal because for me, I like it because of all these things. And so I think those are the two big differences. Knowing what you're looking for and being able to express that in a way that the broker on the other end or whoever it is that you're speaking to understands those things.
Know your pant size.
Know your pant size. That should be the new slogan.
Hi, my name is Michelle. Two questions. So when you transition from the smaller size to the larger ones, how do you go about financing that? Do you put 20% down, or is it kind of creative financing? Then the second question is, self-managed, or did you go about brokerage managed?
So the question was basically, what was your financing for your first commercial multifamily? And then how did you manage it? Did you self-manage it, or did you hire a property manager? I can answer quick first. We did a ground up single family house. And so we did a 1031 exchange. I had one other partner on it. It was a 19-unit building in Cicero. And we did a conventional financing. I think, you know, just as much as you need to know the brokers who bring you the deals, you need to know the banks who are going to fund the deals. So those are definitely the people you want to be on their radar just as much. We actually we were able to do 80% LTV on ours, which is, you know, a little bit rare. Most people are at 75%. And then we ended up self-managing as well, mainly because we have a pretty good network of maintenance people already. And that's usually, you know, the toughest part of self-managing. We're using a software called hemlane.com. And, you know, I really like what they're doing. Their tech is really good. It's works really well with the maintenance stuff. They can actually do all your maintenance for you if you don't even have your own maintenance team. I think it's like $30 base and then $2 a unit for their basic level, $15 a unit for their essential, and then like their growth is like $32, where they'll actually provide the maintenance people, and they're here in Chicago as well.
I think meeting with a lot of lenders is important. Same way, some lenders aren't like a Chase Bank. They lend on multifamily. Wintrust lends on multifamily. There's a couple of credit unions that are smaller banks. Depends on what your how you fit in their box, basically. See, a little bit a different way. So I knew from selling apartment buildings, I knew quite a few lenders. And there was somebody that I knew kind of the business I was in, knew what I was doing and where I wanted to go. And I believe in relationships, building the relationship with the lender is very important, because how they do their business is basic, right? Basic, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but from what I understand is, let me put it that way, is they bring you to the table as a prospective, and I'm looking at Andy back there just to give me the nod, if that's okay. But they bring you to the table as a borrower, and they present you as a borrower, and you either qualify or don't qualify, generally speaking. But sometimes the mortgage brokers have the ability to kind of sway the committee to agree to it. So if they have a relationship with you and they're like, this guy is, he's currently working in this business, but he's trying to move over here, there's a little story behind it, it helps. So, but if they know you, it's a little different. So if you call a random bank, like, hey, you guys are lending, be like, hey, who's your mortgage lender for commercial, for 5 units or more, and go get a cup of coffee with them, or be like, hey, maybe there's a lot of them come to these networking events because they as well need to lend the money. It's their business to lend money. That's how they make money. So they want to lend it. It's not like they don't, but you got to fit in. So and not every lender does it the same, and so you just got to fit in the one that they like. I like to self-manage. It's a lot of work, but I think the reward is there. If you do third-party management, depends on who it is. It matters as well, and the relationship you have with them, it matters as well. What kind of time you have, like if you're working if you're employed and you're W2 and you work 8 to 5, and you're not able to run out and meet the repair guy at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, then you need somebody to help you do that. But if you do have the flexibility of time, I always think the owner operator gets better lending treatment, gets better tenants, the buildings look nicer. I can tell when I walk through a building and I have to sell it, if it's an owner operator or if it's third party managed. It is clearly evident. It's like you just open just by the door key, that's it. You just tell it right away. So that would be my thoughts.
Nice. Yeah, I think we're gonna try and have some commercial lenders here next month too. So we'll get into some of those details.
Good morning, my name is Brandon. On that note of security funding for commercial multifamily, I'm wondering if you go to the bank and they can't provide you full funds, what are some steps you recommend, or because there's a variety of sources, what sources do you recommend going to raise the remaining?
Yeah, so the question was just basically, if you find yourself a multifamily commercial deal, you've got a bank lined up, but you don't have the rest of the money for the down payment, what are some options to bridge that gap?
So other than partners, right, other than getting somebody else to join you, there is bridge lending that is made exactly for that. It is higher interest rates. It usually is about a point, so about 1% a month, or and then it's 1% in, 1% out. So if you do a whole year, sometimes 14%. So there's the bridge lending that usually is used, and a lot of times the same lender will do a bridge loan for the construction component of it. But if you want to do the deal yourself and it's your first one, my strong suggestion is don't go that route quite yet, because it's a lot of pressure financially. If you have this 14% a month kind of person that needs that payment, it's sometimes crippling to your own growth. So maybe buy a smaller deal, or try to find a like-minded partner that usually it's going to be cheaper than hard money lenders. I know that's kind of a bad word, but that's the bridge lending. That's mostly what they're known or called.
They never puts together.
I had a question as far as, when someone wanna they have their units on the market, they want market value, how do you go about that? They have units rented out on the market, but they want asset market rate.
So the question is, if the owner of the multi-unit has tenants that are under market rent, but they want the purchase price to be what their rents would be if the rents were market value. So basically their NOI is lower than it should be. And when you back into that based on the cap rates, and you get the purchase price, which is how commercial.
So basically when the seller wants more money, that I've never heard of that. That's no. So we call that value add, right? Either management value add or physical value add. I think a lot of us are familiar with the physical value add, where the apartment might be a little bit outdated, you fix it up and you can rent it for more money. The management value add, which is happening a lot now, is there's a big ramp up, a big increase this last year on rentals, right? So you might have inside of your own building an apartment that is, let's just say $800 a month, because the tenant's been there for 17 years. They haven't moved and they like living there, but they're moving out finally, or something's happened in their life that they need to move out. You can turn around and you can test the market, right? But as an owner, if you can show proof that there is a unit that you can get, just to say a number, $1,200 a month in rent, and it used to be $800, and every other apartment is $800, but you have one at $1,200, then there's an easy path for the brokers. A lot of us and a lot of people buy on future value, not on present, because you come in and you're like, you know what? I know that the market is not $1,200 a month, it's $1,400 or $1,500 a month. So, and not by fixed, I don't need to fix it up a lot. So if you are able to look at a deal, and I would never say it takes you a year to turn an apartment building, do it in 24 months. You know, if you're looking at a 6-flat, you know, because those leases don't usually are a year-long lease. If you're lucky and there's a month-to-month, you can push those rents. You can have a conversation with the tenant and be like, hey, we got to increase your rent, or here's 60 days to move out, find another place that it's more. So I would underwrite deals with a 18 to 24 month valuation rather than with today's numbers.
Cool. Well, we're kind of at our ending point anyways. So yeah, again, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank Andy Smith and A&N Mortgage for hosting us again. I want to end with gratitude again. I have this book. It's called You're a Badass. It's one of the ones I'm reading right now. So I thought it'd be nice to give away a book each month that I'm reading. I love the quote in here though. It's when you're grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. And so I encourage that for all of us. I put numbers on everyone's name tag. It was 1 through 35. Do you have a favorite number?
17.
17 is the winner. No,
No numbers?
no number on your name tag? Everyone has a number on their name tag? No one has 17,
Let's do 24.
24?
Yep.
24. Winner,
There you go.
Julius.
Two.
All right. Hey, woo, Julian, round of applause. Yeah. All right, yeah, thanks for coming around. Brian's gonna be here, so ask some more questions and talk to some people. Thanks.
Thank you very much.